Fitzwilliam Museum has a significant collection of about 1,500 fans, made mainly in England, Europe and Asia, and dating from the early 1700s to the late 1900s. And these forms represent a great diversity of forms, materials, decoration and techniques. Many of the most remarkable examples come from the collection of Colonel Leonard C.R. Messel and his daughter Anne, Countess of Ross. The Messel-Ross collection was given to the museum in 1985 by the Friends of the Fitzwilliam Museum with a grant from the National Heritage Memorial Fund. And 30 years later, in 2015, Her Majesty's government allocated the fan collection of the late Honourable Christopher Lennox Boyd to the museum in lieu of inheritance tax. Mostly made in England and Europe during the 18th to the 20th centuries, these fans range in type from bejewelled and hand-painted court and wedding fans to printed mass-produced advertising fans, aide-memoire fans, mourning fans and even children's fans. These 627 fans have significantly enhanced the Fitzwilliam's fan collection, making it now one of the largest and most important in the UK. Given the range of subjects portrayed and the large geographical and chronological span represented, the Lennox Boyd fans have enormous potential for interdisciplinary and cross-cultural research and public engagement. Regrettably, many of the Lennox Boyd fans are in slightly poor condition, and so they cannot be handled without risk of further damage, and so this impedes access and research. In order to understand the overall collection care needs, as well as the conservation priorities and the costs involved, the museum's Marley Group generously funded a pilot project, and this involved appraising the condition and conservation needs of about 20%, about a fifth of the collection, with a few fans receiving full conservation treatment. And this video and the accompanying exhibition tells the story of the conservation project so far. You'll be hearing from the conservators involved in conservation aspects of the show.
The first phase of this project was to estimate the condition of the Lennox Boyd fan collection. We decided to do this by taking a sample of the collection and looking at that very closely. The fans are made with multiple materials and require different specialists to conserve them. I work with three-dimensional objects. My treatments on the fans will be focused normally on the sticks and guards of a folding fan. This fan has bone sticks and guards. During the cleaning process, I don't want to be handling this fan too much. What I've decided to do is use a gel which acts as a poultice to bring all the dirt which is within the crevices of the decoration and the cavities of the bone. To remove any residue from the gel, I will use deionized water with a cotton swab and wipe away the residue as well as the dirt from the surface. This fan is another folding fan which has mother of pearl sticks and guards. Here is where that adhesion has now failed over time. This is probably because animal glue is used. I will use a synthetic adhesive instead to re-adhere this. The reason being is that I want conservators and any researchers in the future to be able to assess this object and know the area where I intervened. The last fan I want to show you is a screen fan that has this wonderful hummingbird taxidermy in the middle. What I'll show you today is a patch of Japanese tissue down that I will use to cover a surface of the taxidermy bird which has been eaten by pests in the past. And I had to match the color of this section to that of the body of the bird.
The paper conservator is responsible for assessing the condition of the fan and documenting that condition and then making decisions on which treatments to undertake to make the fan stable and displayable for research purposes and for the exhibition. Probably the most common treatment I carried out on this fan collection was various types of surface cleaning of dirt and dust from the fans and mold spores, and I was doing this with a variety of brushes also use a variety of erasers and other products that you might expect you to use for removing dirt and dust. The other treatments that I did quite a few of were repairs to the splits, and in some cases quite extensive tears that have occurred in the objects. Some of the repairs are very simple that we do, just little bridge mends on the back of the fan to join sections together, and where possible I would open up the two fan leaves and insert a very small Japanese paper repair inside the fan leaf. Conservators are really interested in the materials and techniques that make up the objects that they're treating, and they need to know about that before they consider what treatments are appropriate for them. So this light box shows you the two pieces of paper quite clearly that are lightly adhered together to make the sheet. We can pinpoint the paper maker that made this paper and the actual date because of the watermark. You can see these two water droplets, the way they've affected the fibres in the paper as it was formed, the water droplets have dripped off the edge of the paper maker's mould as he's lifted the fresh sheet of paper out of the vat that the paper was made from.
There are two main challenges in trying to analyse fans. One is that they're fragile and light sensitive, and for this reason we have to employ a non-invasive approach, which means we have to carry out all of our analysis without removing samples and without even physically touching the fans during the analysis. And that is why, for example, reflectance spectroscopy is an especially useful technique, because the instrument has an optical fibre which you can take in your hand and you can maneuver sort of around the three-dimensional shape of the object, getting very close to the surface despite the fact that it isn't flat. Performing scientific analysis on these fans mainly helps us identify the materials they were made of, and we're particularly interested in the pigments used to decorate them. And what we can see from the reflectance spectrum is that whoever painted the fan used an organic dye, which is an organic colorant made using either plants or insects. In this case, we're using Raman spectroscopy, a different analytical method, to try and identify this bright red pigment that was used on this fan. And the Raman spectrum very clearly shows that it's mercury sulfide, vermilion red, a very expensive pigment and very bright red, and it's still looking bright after hundreds of years.
So what we'd like to do now is raise money in order to be able to assess the preservation needs of the remaining 80% of the Lennox Boyd collection. And obviously it's not really practical or possible to conserve all of them to a displayable state, but what we do want to do is be able to conserve them so that they are handleable, safe for researchers and students to come in and enjoy them. And then obviously there'll be some really spectacular ones, very rare, to be able to display those eventually. So lots of conservation there, but also working out safe storage for them and to document them and photograph them and get them all onto our online catalogue. So this really is just the first step of a much more ambitious, longer term project. So please watch this space.